I would like to start off by saying, drugs are just bad. Okay. Medications, substances, drugs, glorious drugs. At once the muse, drive, and ruin of many talented artists throughout the ages. One such artist who had a complicated relationship with drugs is the titular protagonist of this video, Elvis Presley. I know the reprobate was not particularly nice to women, stole black music so selfishly, just to get his white ass wealthy, hey, and he had a predatory manager who looked suspiciously like Tom Hanks. That is not the scope of this video. Today we're here to talk about Presley's prescription drug habit, the history of said prescription drugs, and of course, the king's untimely demise. Elvis, the man often caught in a trap, was found with 10 drugs in his systems upon deletion in his toxicology report. 10, you mother flippers, that's spicy. What medicinal pharmaceutical drugs were prescribed to the prince of pageantry? He was found with codeine, morphine, methaqualone, Valium, and desmethyldiazepam, ethinamate, ethocloronol, pentobarbital, phenobarbital, and budobarbital, a combination of barbiturates, benzodiazepines, antihistamines, hypnotics, and sedatives. Just in case you are not aware, it's not safe to mix heavy drugs.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad. Because drugs are bad, okay?
Now, I don't think there's a conspiracy surrounding Presley's death. Sorry, boring, I know. That's not the direction of this video. What I do find interesting are the archaic pharmaceutical drugs in his system, and the medical malpractice of his doctor, Dr. George C. Nikopoulos, aka Dr. Nick.
Hi everybody!
Hi, Dr. Nick!
In this drugnerd series, I will explore some of the history of some old-fashioned drugs through the stories of famous individuals that abuse them. Today in particular, the drugs Dexedrine, Valium, and Pentobarbital, and the man who abused them, Elvis Presley.
What about your image as a shy, humble country boy?
Oh, I don't know what makes them think that. The gold belt and
On this episode of Down the Rabbit Hole, we'll explore this drug nerd history caper through the lens of our favourite old-timey wigger, Elvis. My name is Paris Rivers, welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole, and let's put on our forensic and clinical thinking caps as we traipse through the king of rock and roll's untimely demise. Elvis Presley was found unconscious in the bedroom of his home, Graceland, in Memphis at 2:30 p.m. August 16, 1977. He was pronounced dead an hour later at Baptist Memorial Hospital, after doctors failed to revive him. Dr. Jerry Francisco, the Shelby County coroner who conducted a 2-hour examination of the body, said preliminary autopsy findings indicated that the cause of death was cardiac arrhythmia, which a hospital spokesman defined as an irregular and effective heartbeat. The coroner was not immediately able to determine the cause of the cardiac arrhythmia. As mentioned previously, his toxicology report was damning. Presley's blood was found to contain the very high levels of the opiates dilaudid, percodan, demerol, and codeine, as well as quaaludes. The other two pathologists also found evidence of severe and chronic constipation, diabetes, and glaucoma during their examination. In case you didn't know, opiates such as oxy and codeine give you constipation, which leads to another often asked question. Did Mr. Presley actually cease to exist whilst taking a constitution? That's defecation. Years of drug misuse and unhealthy eating habits saw him gain weight. It was said that he often secluded himself in his bedroom, where he would indulge in cheeseburgers, necessitating a nurse's constant presence. He also ate a device of his own invention, the fried peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwich. his legendary snack. So did he crap himself to death? It's a myth, frankly. However, there is a lot of evidence to suggest he did die on the toilet. Interestingly, the combination of his poor diet and opioid addiction led to severe constipation. A post-mortem examination revealed 4 months' worth of stool compacted in his bowel. Must be the fried peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwich.
Now, see that color right there? That's what I'm talking about. Golden, not burnt.
Smells sweet already.
Lay them bananas in, let the butter kiss them. Don't crowd the
Just
pan.
a few like
That's
that.
the ticket. Give it a little press, and there she is.
Dan Wallach, the chief investigator for the Tennessee Office of the State Chief Medical Examiner, witnessed the autopsy. According to him, Presley's chronic constipation caused by years of prescription medication abuse and a high-fat, high-cholesterol diet led to a phenomenon known as Valsalva's maneuver. In simple terms, the strain of attempting to defecate could have compressed Presley's abdominal aorta, causing his heart to shut down. The abdominal aorta is a large blood vessel in the belly, and its healthy functioning is usually required to stay alive. Presley's cheeseburgers didn't get the memo.
You are stupid. You are stupid. And don't forget, you are stupid.
Unfortunately, this version of events might be a myth. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view. Some experts state that his heart stopped beating just as he was about to sit down on the can. This is the version more commonly accepted now. Either way, he had a heart attack in the bathroom and his colon was gummed up. Some people believe that Elvis' death was caused by a drug overdose, which is a fair assumption to make. The mother flipper died with 10 different heavy-duty drugs in his system. When the case was re-examined in 1994, coroner Joseph Davis disagreed with the pharmaceutical deletion theory. According to this Poindexter, the position of Elvis Presley's body was such that he was about to sit down on the commode when the seizure occurred. He pitched forward onto the carpet, his rear in the air, and was dead by the time he hit the floor. If it had been a drug overdose, Elvis Presley would have slipped into an increasing state of slumber. He would have pulled up his pajama bottoms and crawled to the floor to seek help. It takes hours to die from drugs. Now, Presley was not limited to prescription drugs found in the toxicology report. On the contrary, he was an avid user and fan of the totally safe amphetamines, Dexedrine and Bifetamine. Like many performers of the era, he was prescribed uppers to keep him productive during the day, and a cocktail of downers to sedate him at night. I too have ADHD. I myself have been prescribed Zagotin to help treat the condition, which is a long-release form of methylphenidate hydrochloride, aka Ritalin. However, before methylphenidate was synthesized and used to treat conditions like ADHD and narcolepsy, there were amphetamines. Now, Presley was not limited to the prescription drugs found in the toxicology report. On the contrary, amphetamine was first synthesized in 1887 by Romanian chemist Lazar Edulinu, who was working on a treatment for asthma at the University of Berlin. However, he was more interested in crude oil than getting high, and the drug sat uncharacterized until 1927 when University of California, Los Angeles researcher Gordon Allers resynthesized it and demonstrated its therapeutic value as a central nervous system and respiratory stimulant. It was commercialized as a powerful bronchodilator inhalant called Benzedrine and placed on the legal drug market to treat colds and asthma. Like previous quasi-quacks, he claimed that the drug could treat anything from obesity, narcolepsy, hangovers from alcohol, depression, vomiting associated with pregnancy, and ADHD. Well, they were right about some of those things. Recreational Benzedrine use was popular during Prohibition as a readily obtainable high. Benzedrine and Dexedrine, aka dextroamphetamine, was used by soldiers during World War II to enhance endurance and alertness. Shire Pharmaceuticals rebounded the use of amphetamines in 1996 by introducing adderall as a patented blend of 4 different types of racemic amphetamine salts to compete with other pharmaceuticals on the market, targeted to treat ADHD and narcolepsy. Though the 3,1 enantiomeric mixture of dextroamphetamine, Levoamphetamine salts in Adderall was designed to increase focus and limit the initial euphoric rush. The mechanism of action also stimulates the brain's pleasure and reward centers, rendering it highly addictive. Nonetheless, Adderall continues to be popular, especially in academic and military settings. Hollywood got onto the pharmaceutical bandwagon early and eagerly sought out chemical solutions to long, grueling, and demanding work hours from their performers. It wasn't street-level stuff either. There was a whole system of psychiatrists, doctors, and physicians who were more than ready to prescribe amphetamines and barbiturates to the studios and get a cut in some of the glamour and money. Elvis had a long history of amphetamine use. His classmates report that he used amphetamines in high school. He may have been treating symptoms of ADHD, as his friends from that year also report that he was unable to sit still and he was fidgeting all the time. Later he took amphetamines to boost his energy and confidence before a show, and to help him lose weight that kept building through his cheeseburger, bacon, and butter-coated diet. Amphetamines were mainly given to adults in the 1950s and 1960s, and they were given in droves, but not for ADHD. These drugs were marketed for obesity and depression in adults, and doctors thought they worked. Doctors, not the FDA, ran the show when Elvis started taking them, though the American Medical Association, AMA, between 1905 and 1955, the AMA was the main arbiter of whether a drug worked. We don't know if Presley had ADHD. Elvis might have qualified for a diagnosis of binge eating disorder. His personal physician described a typical Elvis meal as 3 double cheeseburgers, half a pound of fries, and a whole pound of bacon on the side.
Can I take your order, please?
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soda.
About 5,000 calories in one sitting. Like twice the recommended calories for an adult male in an entire day. And Elvis often took amphetamines to lose weight before a tour. Amphetamines do lead to weight loss, and they do so by reducing caloric intake, but this benefit is short-lived. Elvis weighed 350 pounds at the time of his death, which would place his BMI at 48, the 40 cutoff for the highest risk of class 3 obesity. In Elvis's day, the preferred amphetamine for weight loss was the 3-to-1 mixture of amphetamine salts branded as Obertrol. The original formulation also contained methamphetamine. Fun. Obertrol fell out of use in the 1980s, boo, and in 1994 the manufacturer changed its name to Adderall as an ADD for all, and started marketing the drug for ADHD. Dexedrine, one of his favored meds, is more potent per milligram than Adderall, so medicinal users switching between the two always require a dosage adjustment under provider supervision. For example, 20 milligrams of Adderall roughly equals 15 milligrams of Dexedrine. Dexedrine contains only pure dextroamphetamine, while Adderall is a blend of 75% dextroamphetamine and 25% levoamphetamine. That difference in composition is why the two medications can feel noticeably different even though both treat ADHD. Dexedrine is more potent per milligram than Adderall, so switching between the two always requires a dosage adjustment under provider supervision. Dexedrine is still prescribed in certain countries. It tends to suit people who experience jitteriness, anxiety, mood crashes, or overstimulation on Adderall, while Adderall may work better for those who need more physical energy, motivation to start tasks, or simply require a widely available first-line option. Just a reminder, drug abuse is bad and we do not condone drug abuse here.
Drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. If you do them, you're bad. Because drugs are bad, okay?
Beta-amphetamine 20, aka Black Beauty's Benzedrine 20, is a potent stimulant drug that contains 10 milligrams of each amphetamine and dextroamphetamine. Stimulant drugs like Benzedrine 20 increase central nervous system activity. Increased CNS activity can relieve symptoms associated with ADHD and other conditions. In the 1960s and 70s, recreational use of Benzedrine 20 increased. People would sell it as a street drug under the name Black Beauties. While these pills took the public by storm initially, the drug was made illegal in 1965 unless obtained via a prescription. Then with the Controlled Substances Act in 1970, there was a decline in the use of black beauties. In 1998, Amphetamine 20 was officially withdrawn from the market. This is all in America, by the way. That didn't stop our boy, the Burger King himself. As stated before, Elvis abused these drugs to manage his alarming weight, to boost his confidence for performing, and to keep him productive. Since his death, many experts have also gone on to say that it is likely Presley had an underlying heart condition, which is only exacerbated by his amphetamine abuse. In addition to these uppers, Elvis was also known to enjoy the drugs diazepam and Pentobarbital, aka Valium, and Nembutal. Valium, of course, being the notorious mother's little helper, and the latter also being found in Marilyn Monroe's body upon her demise. Now, many of you 21st century kids may be unfamiliar with barbiturates. Barbiturates are a class of central nervous system depressants known for their potential for abuse and addiction. Barbiturates were first synthesized by a German chemist named Adolf von Bayer. In 1864, he was working on the synthesis of a drug using urea and malonic acid, a chemical found in apples. This synthetic drug became known as a barbiturate acid, named after St. Barbara's Day because that was the day the drug was discovered. He had stopped into his local tavern to celebrate St. Barbara's birthday. In 1903, he and two other chemists in Germany altered the compound and created a psychoactive drug named barbiturate. When given to humans, it induced sleep and was one of the first hypnotic drugs, a term used to generically categorize chemicals that induce sleep. Mr. Bayer became famous, and his established chemical research won him the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1905. Pentobarbital itself was first developed by chemist Ernest H. Vohweiler and Donnelly L. Taborn, working at Abbott Laboratories in 1930. These were the drugs that Judy Garland up, so you know they're bad. Pentobarbital is still used for lethal injections in the state of Texas, with one such execution as recent as 2014. Synthesized in 1928, pentobarbital rose to prominence when a Mayo Clinic anesthesiologist named John S. Lundy began administering Nembutal, the brand name for the drug, as an anesthesia for surgeries. In lower dosages, it eventually gained popularity as a sleep aid, an anti-anxiety drug, and a treatment for epilepsy and asthma. It was swallowed as a pill, inserted as a suppository, and injected. Ads from the 50s featured drawings of children too anxious to sleep and promised a short but powerful hypnotic effect and prolonged sedative action without a morning after hangover. As with nearly all barbiturates, overdose was a risk, and the drug received negative attention in 1962 after Marilyn Monroe was found unalived at her home in Los Angeles. The autopsy report ruled her death an acute barbiturate poisoning brought on by the interaction of pentobarbital and chloral hydrate. We'll discuss her demise in depth another day. Needless to say, there was no denying that pentobarbital might not be the best thing to give your kid before bed. After Monroe's death, pentobarbital, along with other barbiturates, saw decline in use in America. It was still used to treat certain rare forms of epilepsy and to induce comas, yet its ability to cause a peaceful, sleepy death became increasingly useful for one group of veterinarians. Yes, they love using this substance of putting down your favorite cat or dog. At least they get high on the way out. For years now, drug makers have been selling pentobarbital to vets, promising humane, painless, and rapid euthanasia. As one label reads, veterinarians are confident that pentobarbital offers a painless death if administered properly. I'm not a doctor or a vet, just a drug nerd. Needless to say, it's not a good drug to mix with anything. Dr. Nick didn't seem to care. The last drug, I lied. Two drugs I want to talk about, diazepam and nordazepam. Both of these pharmaceuticals belong to a family of drugs called the benzodiazepine family. Benzos are used for treating anxiety and panic seizures and insomnia. Benzos are used for treating anxiety, panic, seizures, and insomnia. Benzodiazepine development began in the 1950s following work carried out by the Polish chemist Dr. Leo Sternbach, who at the time was working for the Swiss pharmaceutical company Hoffmann-La Roche. The first benzodiazepine, chlordiazepoxide, Librium, was synthesized in 1955 by Leo Sternbach. The pharmacological properties of the compounds prepared initially were disappointing, and Leo abandoned the project. 2 years later, in April 1957, co-worker Earl Reeder noticed a nicely crystalline compound left over from the discontinued project while spring cleaning the lab. How odd. You just often find drugs whilst you're spring cleaning. The compound was found to show strong sedative, anticonvulsant, and muscle relaxant effects in subjects. These impressive clinical findings led to its speedy introduction through the world in 1960 under the name Librium. Following chlordiazepoxide, diazepam was synthesized in 1959 and marketed again by Hoffmann under the brand name Valium in 1963, and for a while the two were the most commercially successful drugs. Nordazepam, as well as flurazepam, all these fucking names, were released commercially in 1965. The introduction of benzodiazepines led to a decrease in the prescription of barbiturates, and by the 1970s they had largely replaced the older drugs for sedative and hypnotic drugs that were newer and hip. Diazepam, better known as Valium, is a benzodiazepine commonly prescribed for conditions like anxiety and insomnia. Desmethyldiazepam, more commonly referred to as nordazepam, is a benzodiazepine prescribed for anxiety, insomnia, and seizures. Today is a less common choice than other benzodiazepine forms. Now, benzos in general are highly habit-forming, lose effectiveness within a short amount of time, and do not mix well with opioids. Don't do it. Opiates, also a central nervous depressant, actually depress breathing. One reason benzos are preferred over barbiturates is because on their own, they do not impact your breathing. However, combined with opiates, benzos can slow down your breathing to the point your body forgets to do it on its own and you die. This isn't how Presley died, but he was popping these pills daily and it was wreaking havoc on his lovely rotund body. Presley was definitely physically dependent on these drugs, and prolonged use can cause cognitive decline, anxiety, depression, seizures, and emotional blunting. Now, when Presley died, he was not a healthy man. When he died, Presley had disease in nearly every major organ in his body. Gastric ulcer in his megacolon, a fatty liver, traumatic brain injury, arthritis, and a herniated disc, hypertension and cardiomyopathy, scrotitis, glaucoma and labyrinthis, prediabetes and high cholesterol, COPD, antitrispin deficiency, tooth decay, and amnia. True, he did not make healthy lifestyle choices outside of his pharmaceutical regime. His workload and performance schedule were tremendous at times, and it slowly took a toll on his body. He ate cartoonish amounts of junk food, and the life of a megastar must have been highly detrimental to his mental health. He married a child when he was a grown-ass man. We all know he wasn't speaking to no therapist. Be that as it may, the dangerous drugs prescribed to him by his doctors, aka drug pushers, are a very important element in this story. So you might think there would have been repercussions for the guy casually giving him medicinal speed and hypnotics. What did happen to our dear friend Dr. Nick following the death of Presley? Well, Dr. George Nikopoulos was Presley's primary physician during the 1970s. This is where he sourced most of his drugs. Born in 1927, Nikopoulos grew up in Anniston, Alabama. He enlisted in the army immediately after high school and served in Germany in the Army Medical Corps. He received his bachelor's from the University of the South in 1951 and 8 years later his MD at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine. In 1967, Nicopoullos was working with several other doctors at a group practice in Memphis when he was first called upon by Presley to treat saddle sores, the result of too much horseback riding. Nicopoullos treated Presley a handful of times over the next few years, but it wasn't until 1970 that he was offered the position of Presley's full-time doctor. This did, in fact, mean prescribing large quantities of medications ranging from sleeping pills to painkillers and amphetamines. Nicopoullos also prescribed medication to various members of Presley's entourage and band. It must be said, Nicopoullos isn't the sole blame for Presley's demise. Presley, being a huge star, was easily able to obtain drugs from a variety of sources. 3 years following Presley's death, Nicopoullos was indicted on 14 counts of overprescribing stimulants, depressants, and painkillers for not only Presley but also the singer Jerry Lee Lewis and 12 other patients. Nicopoullos was accused of unlawfully, willfully, and feloniously prescribing the medications in the period leading up to Presley's death. Although he would later say in a 1981 interview with the American Medical News that he had only been responsible for prescribing 2 of the drugs found in Presley's system. Not so sure about that, Nick. Between 1975 and 1977, he had prescribed 19,000 doses of drugs.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000!
10,000 of which were in 1977 alone. Nicopoullos was ultimately acquitted, but the same year the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners found him guilty of overprescribing medication and suspended his medical license for 3 months. Yay. As they should have, but it should have been permanently. The board then permanently revoked his license 15 years later, citing his years-long practice of overprescribing. Nicopoullos appealed the ruling several times, even admitting that he had overprescribed in the past because I cared too much, he said before one appeal of the boards. When his medical career effectively ended in 1995, Nicopoullos just took on various jobs. For a time, he found work in the Disability Claims Department at a FedEx office and also for a short period served as Jerry Lewis's road manager. It is believed that Nicopoullos is referenced in the world of animation. Dr. Nick, a mad quack doctor, first appeared in season 2 of The Simpsons. In the episode, he excessively treats Bart's minor injuries after a car accident and at one point ends up before a malpractice committee. Art imitating life? The medical world of the 20th century was wild sometimes. This was before prescription drug addiction was properly understood by the greater public and laws and safety measures were simply not put in place to protect the patients. Dexedrine is still used to this day to treat ADHD. Valium is sparingly prescribed to treat insomnia and anxiety. Stuff like Pentobarbital is only used in surgery or to treat seizures in dogs. It's heavy stuff. However, modern doctors and companies are trained and required by law to observe, acknowledge, and prevent dangerous interactions between certain prescriptions. He wasn't killed directly or solely by his doctor, Dr. Nick, but his addictions and drug problems exacerbated his already poor health. Drugs are just bad. But the burgers and long hours didn't help. Hi, thanks everyone again for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, please think about liking and subscribing. I will be delving more into the history of Elvis. Next episode, I'm going to do a top something list of the very bizarre foods he ate, because it only kind of touched on the surface in this episode, but he really ate some really out there and bizarre food stuffs, and we're gonna go there next episode. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Jack was a hard car to see.